Hola, Facebook. It's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode number 31 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. If you're watching via recorded video, feel free to go ahead and forward. I'm going to tag some friends and give a brief introduction, so feel free to go ahead and forward a few minutes. Just going to work to get an audience here by tagging some friends, seeing who's available online right now to go ahead and join us. So again, if you're watching the recorded video, please feel free to go ahead and forward while I tag some friends and we get an audience going here. So I'm just looking to see who's live right now on Facebook so that they can come over and join us for episode number 31 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. So again, just tagging some friends, seeing who's live right now so we can get an audience going, and we'll go ahead and get going shortly here. It's going to be a great episode. Really excited about this episode. We're going to be talking about two huge icons in recorded music history, Sam Cooke and John Lennon. So again, just tagging some folk, looking to see who's available right now on Facebook so they can come over and join us. So just a couple more minutes, just looking for a few more friends that we can tag, and we'll get an audience going, and we'll go ahead and get started really soon here. So really excited about this episode, and thank you so much for watching and joining. I'm very humbled and appreciative of all your support. So just again, gonna tag a couple more friends here, and we'll get going really soon with episode number 31 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Yes, looks like we already got a few people join, not the least of which is Emma Lou. Shout out to Emma Lou. Shout out to Healy. Shout out to Lazy and Nadia. Thank you so much for joining. If Healy, Lazy, or Emma Lou want to give me a thumbs up or throw likes or hearts in the air so I know that my sound is working well, that would be greatly appreciated. I know not everybody's there. Awesome. We got some things going on. Awesome. So again, appreciate your support. I'm sure more will be joining soon. So while we're waiting for a few more people to join, I'm going to go ahead and give a brief introduction, and then we'll get going with the content of today's episode, episode 31. So I'm Beto. I'm your daily divinity coach. I'm here for episode number 31 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. Episode number 31 is entitled Sam Cooke, John Lennon, right? Two huge icons in recorded music history. Sam Cooke, John Lennon, and manifesting immortality as spiritual currency. Today's Sunday, January 31st, 2021. And if you have any questions at all, I refer you to my website, dailydivinitycoach.com. So a little bit about me. I teach on three main topics or subjects. Number one being the law of attraction, our manifesting abundance. I was actually tutored in the law of attraction starting at the age of 10 by my mother, and still today, she still tutors me today. It's not uncommon for her to call me before one of these episodes and say, "Mijo, son, don't forget to let the people know this, or don't forget to mention this, or remind them about this." So she's still my law of attraction tutor, and she's the best, so why would I want another? The second thing I talk about is liberation theology, or what I call manifesting justice. Liberation theology, I was introduced to liberation theology in college as an undergraduate, and it became my emphasis of our course study in graduate school. I'm a graduate of Harvard University Divinity School, so liberation theology was my thing when I was at Harvard University Divinity School, in seminary and whatnot. So I do hold a Master of Divinity degree, and I am a graduate of Harvard University Divinity School. What else do I do? So I post every day, so I do about a paragraph, and I post on social media here on Facebook as well as Instagram and Twitter. And I do these Sunday Weekly Revival shows. So I post daily with the exception of Sundays, because I'm here with you live doing Sunday Weekly Revival every Sunday with the exception of the first Sunday of the month. because the first Sunday of the month I do a monthly mailbag, my monthly mailbag, where I take your pre-submitted questions and I provide thoughtful responses. So next week is going to be another one, a monthly mailbag. So if you have any questions about today's episode, past episodes, posts, or just anything at all, anything general, please pre-submit those questions. You can do that, you can instant message me, you can do it through my website, dailydivinitycoach.com. There's an order form. If you have my phone number, go ahead and text me. People have done that before. So definitely want to get your question or questions so I can provide that thoughtful response next week. But please pre-submit them. That would be wonderful. I greatly appreciate that. So what else? Oh, I produced these rubber bracelets. So there's a black one that reads Manifest Immortality, a blue one, navy blue, that reads Manifest Abundance, and a gray one the navy blue reads Manifest Abundance, and the gray one reads Manifest Justice. And I know it's hard to see from back there, but they're awesome. I've given hundreds and hundreds away throughout North America and Europe. So if you haven't received one, please reach out. They're free. I provide them for free. In the U.S., shipping is always free. And throughout North America and Europe, shipping is free until the end of March. So please, if you haven't received them, please reach out. If you want more than one, just let me know and I'll ship them. It's the same shipping price to send one as it is 5 or whatnot. So please reach out if you haven't received your bracelets yet. I also do provide free one-time 45-minute divinity coaching. If you have something going on you want to talk about or any questions, happy to schedule that time with you. And I also offer up free scientific prayer. So if you have a prayer request, please let me know. I get my mom on the phone and we do our thing, and it's awesome. We've gotten reports back that it works, and something that I've known since I was 10. But please, if you have a need and you'd like us to pray for you, my mom and I, it actually makes her very happy. She's retired now. So she looks forward to it when that call comes in. She's like, Mijo, another prayer request? Yes. So please don't hesitate. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the content of today's show. So really excited. Episode 31, Sam Cooke, John Lennon, and Manifesting Immortality, a Spiritual Fifth World Currency. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Sam Cooke. So Sam Cooke, born 1931, and unfortunately left us too soon in 1964. Sam Cooke is known as the King of Soul. Sam Cooke was a singer, a songwriter, an entrepreneur, and he was also a civil rights activist. He was born in Mississippi, yet moved to Chicago as a young man, not as a young man, as a child. His family moved from Mississippi to Chicago when Sam Cooke was just a child. He was raised a PK. PK stands for preacher's kid. He was raised as a preacher's kid. His daddy was a preacher. And he ended up joining a gospel group at the age of 19. So he's still a teenager, although at the end of his teen years. But at 19, he joined a gospel group and served as a lead vocalist from 1950 to 1956, so for 6 years, with the Soul Steerers. And I love this name, Soul Steerers. It's, steering the soul, right? They're out to steer your soul with their songs. So that's what Cooke did early in his music career. Then he decided to go solo. He wanted to move on beyond that gospel genre, reach a broader audience, right? Take his music and his craft to another level. R&B, pop, and so he went solo. And amazingly, in 1957, his debut single, right, his first debut single, went to number 1 on not just Billboard's R&B chart, but its top or Hot 100 chart too. So number 1 across the genre of R&B and pop. And that song was You Send Me. And in my opinion, still one of the greatest love songs or romantic songs in recorded music history. You Send Me. I was about to try and bust out and sing it, but I'm not a great singer yet, so I'm not gonna do that. But anyhow, Cooke performed live on the Ed Sullivan Show with You Send Me. He was also on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. So he was an icon, right out the gate. An icon with his first, well, not right out the gate because he was with the Soul Steers first, but right out the gate as a pop star or icon. So that song "You Send Me" was actually named number 115 by Rolling Stone magazine of their 500 greatest songs of all time, and that was in 2010. So I also want to talk about another song. We're going to talk about 3 of Cooke's songs. Another song called Chain Gang. I know a lot of you are Sam Cooke fans. You remember the song Chain Gang. It was released in 1960, and it was Cooke's first top 10 hit after You Send Me. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Top 100, and it was Sam Cooke's first top single in the UK, so it made him popular, very, very popular in the United Kingdom as well. He became an icon out there with this song Chain Gang. And so this song was actually inspired by a real event that took place, a personal event that took place in Sam Cooke's life. He was on tour, and he actually had an encounter with a chain gang of prisoners on a highway. And it inspired him to write this song, Chain Gang. And I'm going to go ahead and recite some of the lyrics. You hear them moaning their lives away, right? So these are the prisoners. They're moaning because the work's hard, right? And they're prisoners. They're chained up. Then you hear somebody say, that's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. So, obviously there's a whole lot more lyrics than that, but I just wanted to give you a taste. So about this song, it's really a commentary on the prison industrial complex. And if you've seen my past episodes, you read my post, this is a big theme in my work here on social media, is the prison industrial complex. Sam Cooke was ahead of his time, right? He wrote a song which actually was a top hit for him about the prison industrial complex. He knew, right? He knew that the 13th Amendment, yes, abolished slavery, except for the punishment of crime. And that's what those prison chain gangs were. It was slave labor, right? Which was allowed under the 13th Amendment because, again, although it abolished slavery, it did not do so for the punishment of crime. Prisoners could still serve as slave labor. So, Sam Cooke, You Send Me, Chain Gang, and the third song I want to talk about from Sam Cooke is A Change Is Gonna Come. And I know a lot of you out there remember that song, A Change Is Gonna Come. So this song was inspired by a lot of things, namely personal events in Sam Cooke's own life. There's one in particular. Sam Cooke was on tour again with his entourage, and they were supposed to stay the night at a motel or hotel there in a city in Louisiana. And they were turned away. It turned out to be a whites-only motel, and they were turned away. They weren't allowed to stay there. And fast forward, and after Sam's death, his family was actually given the city the keys to that city by the mayor. They recognized what a horrendous thing that took place, right? One of the most famous singers in the world, but anyway, it shouldn't happen to anybody, right? So anyway, they're given the keys to the city, so it was influenced by that. It was influenced. So Sam Cooke is born in Mississippi, right? Grew up in Chicago. Another Emmett Till, if you remember what happened there. Emmett Till was born in Mississippi, right? Grew up in Chicago. Had gone down to visit relatives in Mississippi, and was tragically and heinous. He was murdered. It's heinous, and it came out in the newspapers, right? Because the mother had an open casket because she wanted the world to see, this heinous act of white supremacist violence that took her young child, right? He's 14 years old. So that also influenced Sam Cooke with this song, and other things as well. Not the least of which was the 1963 speech by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? I have a dream, the I have a dream speech, right? Very popular worldwide. And then also the song was influenced by Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's 1963 song, Blowing in the Wind. So lots of inspiration behind this song, and change is going to come. Cooke actually first performed the song pre-release. He performed it on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Again, pre-release, because the song was actually not officially released until 2 weeks after Sam Cooke was fatally shot at a Los Angeles motel, and that happened, unfortunately, on December 11th, 1964. Again, passed away way too young. So the song itself, A Change is Gonna Come, became an anthem for the civil rights movement. They embraced that song, it became an anthem. It was a top 10 R&B hit and also a top 40 pop hit. So it had acclaim. And even more so after its release, Rolling Stone magazine voted it number 12, right? Ahead of You Send Me, number 12 in its magazine's top 500 songs of all time, and that was their 2005 issue. So I'm just going to go ahead and recite some of the verses. And again, I know a lot of you recognize this song, you remember it should bring back some memories for y'all. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. So again, this song was written, right, for the civil rights movement. Nonetheless, when I reflect on this song, right, and the work that I do on social media and thinking about abundance and scarcity and the fifth world, the fourth world, when I hear that river, especially that word river and running river, and knowing a little bit about Sam Cooke's personal life and history, legacy, when I hear running river, I think abundance. That's what I think, abundance. Because scarcity will, dam up that river, right? Abundance breaks through that scarcity thinking, right? Breaks through scarcity. So when I think about, the river, it's about abundance. And what I know about Sam Cooke was that he was all about abundance, right? He was in the vein of Desi Arnaz, right? The great Cuban-American television actor and producer, right? Desi Arnaz. He was in the vein of Berry Gordy, right? He actually preceded, he was a precursor to Motown, to Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson. In my mind, he's like Smokey and Berry together before there was Motown. Because what he did is he founded his own record company, SAR Records, with his business associate, J.W. Alexander. And they had artists signed under their label, one of which was the Valentinos. And the Valentinos featured Bobby Womack, who was also a songwriter. And so they released the song, It's All Over Now, if you remember, It's All Over Now, which reached number 94 on the Billboard 100, Hot 100. Not bad, right? Number 94. But then what happened was the Rolling Stones reached out. They had heard the song, they reached out, and they asked if they could, do it. They wanted to do It's All Over Now. And Womack wasn't too happy at the beginning, but Cooke explained the business behind it, right? That if you release this to the Stones and it becomes a big hit, right, bigger than number 94, the royalties will come to you and come to SAR Records. So Womack agreed, and they allowed the Rolling Stones to publish the song, and it actually became Rolling Stones' #1 hit. Their first #1 hit. Was the song written by Bobby Womack under the SAR Records label owned by Sam Cooke. So he was an entrepreneur. He was a visionary. He was about abundance, right? So let me move on to the next line here that I want to recite for you all from A Change is Gonna Come. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, because I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's a very interesting verse, especially coming from a PK, right, a preacher's kid, talking about fear of death. That even though life's been tough, right, life's been hard, life's been a challenge, right, white supremacy, the fourth son, all this stuff, I'm still afraid to die because I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. So, obviously, as the divinity coach is, somebody talking, one of the major three themes that I talk about, and the most major theme of the three themes is immortality, right? This one really speaks to me because I know that we're not supposed to be afraid to die, right? We're not meant to die. We've been created in the image of the divine. And the divine is not only ageless, but endless, which makes us endless, right? We're supposed to be like the great teacher, right? We're supposed to ascend to heaven alive in our physical bodies. We're not supposed to face physical death because physical death is actually an untruth. So moving on to the next line, or some more lyrics. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees, right? So this is about civil rights, right? The movement, the white supremacy, how the white brother was just, knocking them back down, right? And that's not supposed to be like that, right? The Hopi Maya tell us, right? We're not supposed to have these divisions. And in the fifth son, we won't, right? These divisions are going to end. I want to read, just a few more lyrics. So, and this one drives it home. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is going to come. Oh, yes, it will. So this right here, obviously, the title of the song is "The Change Is Going to Come." So this is the hope part, right? It shows you that Sam Cooke was a very hopeful person. He was obviously a preacher's kid, so he had that hope that a change was going to come. And we know, right? We know the fifth world, it's coming, right? Divisions are going to end. A change is coming, right? This era of empires, right? White supremacist empires, this era of Portugal and Spain and France and the Netherlands and the UK and the US, right, with their white supremacy and their genocide and slavery and whatnot, it's ending, right? And the fifth world is emerging. Just want to say a few words about Sam Cooke's legacy. So at his funeral in Chicago, 200,000 adoring fans lined up more than 4 city blocks to pay their respects for Sam Cooke. He was adored. Unfortunately, there's still mysteries that surround his death, not the least of which are questions about, was the FBI involved, right? Because Cooke was a civil rights activist, right, ahead of his time, right, with SAR Records and being an entrepreneur and looking at black empowerment, black power. So that there's that question. There's the question of, was the mob involved, right? Because the mob was heavily into music at that time, right? Boxing, music, sports. They were involved in all of that. And Sam Cooke was a threat, right? He's an entrepreneur, SAR Records, right? It's all over now, right? Rolling Stones, that was their song, right? They released it to the Stones, #1 hit, right? They had the royalties come in, and they're on the verge of really building an empire. And so was the mob involved in that? Because he had dreams, right? He had ideas and visions of bringing in a group of people like himself, right? That had like James Brown, right? That had his type of success, and he wanted to form a big record company, and they would have their company. They'd also work on taking acts on tour, right? As a booking agent. So he had a lot of ideas. So, unfortunately, there's still a lot of mystery and questions around that. I bring that up because people may say that Cooke's life is tainted because of the way he died, but I will never agree with that. I think it's nonsense. That he had an incredible legacy, and there's still those questions around his death, and there sure seems to be some foul play. But I'm gonna go ahead and let you all decide that. Moving on, and I know we're gonna go over today, but these are 2 huge icons, right? Sam Cooke and John Lennon. I can't limit time this week, so if you need to depart before I end, please, you can watch the recorded video. The end of it, I'll post a recorded video for you. John Lennon, born 1940, passed away too soon, right? 1980. So he's roamed the earth about 40 years. He was a singer, songwriter, musician, and peace activist, right? Cooke, civil rights activist. Lennon, peace activist. most well known as the founder, co-lead vocalist, along with Paul McCartney, and rhythm guitarist of the Beatles, the most successful band in recorded music history with global sales of 1.1 billion records. After the Beatles disbanded in 1970, Lennon decided to continue his career as a solo artist. And as a Beatle and a solo artist, Lennon is credited with 25 #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. 25, incredible career. And it ended way too soon. Lennon was shot and killed by a Beatles fan. And unfortunately that took place on December 8th, 1980 in New York City, not far from where I am. Lennon's solo album, Imagine. I know some of you remember it. Some of you remember when it was released. It was released in 1971 and it had the title track, Imagine. So the album was called Imagine and the title track, the song was called Imagine. It, went to #1 in the UK, in the US, and around the world. It became Lennon's best-selling single of his solo career. And it also became an anthem for anti-war movements. So like Sam Cooke's, right, A Change Is Gonna Come, became an anthem for the civil rights movement. Lennon's song, Imagine, became an anthem for anti-war movements. And in 2017, the National Music Publishers Association named Imagine, the song of the century. So a lot of acclaim. The song was primarily inspired by two things. #1 was a book by John Lennon's wife, Yoko Ono, called Grapefruit. She was an artist, a conceptual artist, and she had produced a book called Grapefruit. So that was the #1 influencer, and there's a second one as well. But anyhow, there's a line in that book, Grapefruit, that reads, "Imagine the clouds dripping, dig a hole in your garden to put them in." Pretty far out thinking, right? But that that was Yoko Ono. She was a conceptual artist, and Lennon dug it, right? He dug her work, and so anyway, that book and those lines that I just recited were a big influence on the song Imagine. As a matter of fact, in a 1980 interview, right, not shortly before his death, or shortly before his passing, Lennon admitted that Ono should have received songwriting credit. He said, at the time I was just too macho, and she was there, we wrote it together, she should have got songwriting credit. So fast forward 46 years, in 2017, she was actually finally credited. She was given songwriting credit for Imagine. So the songwriting credit now reads Lennon-Ono instead of just John Lennon. And Ono herself says, reflecting back, she says that the reason, big picture, right? Big picture, the reason that her and John came together as a couple was to write this song, Imagine. The second big influence of the song Imagine was a prayer book. A book on positive prayer that was given as a gift to John and Yoko by a comedian, the comedian Dick Gregory. And about this prayer book, or about positive prayer, John Lennon says that it's not about no religion, right? It's about no denominations of religion, right? No divisions of religion. And if we can imagine that, we can imagine a world at peace. And he goes on and he says that when he talks about the divisions or denomination of religion, he said that we got to get away from this "my God is bigger than your God" thing. In Lennon's mind, that is what, that's what we need to get away from so that we can imagine a world at peace. So I'm going to go ahead and recite some of the lyrics. And again, I know a lot of you know this song. Imagine there's no heaven. And I'm going to stop right there. Because and this is my interpretation. Unfortunately, I can't engage John in a conversation. But I think when he said that, imagine there's no heaven, I think what he's really saying is, because he was influenced by Muhammad Ali, right, the Civil Rights Act movement, by the Black Power movement. And I think when he says, imagine there's no heaven, it's really a reflection on what Malcolm X would say, right, about the pie in the sky heaven, right? That so many people are content with what they have here, which is too small, right? It's limited, it's scarce, versus looking at abundance, right? I said Sam Cooke was all about abundance. By looking at abundance, because they're waiting for heaven, right? They're pie in the sky. So I really believe that that's what John Lennon meant here when he says, imagine there's no heaven. And then he says, imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. And he goes on, no hell below us, above us, only sky, right? No hell below us, above us. And I think literally he meant, imagine there's no hell. I mean, I think that's literal. Imagine all the people living for today, right? So if we're not focused on pie in the sky or hell, we can actually make things happen, right? Here on earth, we can actually usher in abundance, right? Get away from the scarcity stuff, which is very, he's very visionary. I mean, this is very fifth world thinking, very Hopi Maya prophecy, right? Moving on with more lyrics. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. So we already talked about the religion piece. He's talking about no denominations. He wasn't talking about, no religion. He's talking about what we call today spirituality, right? Yes, spirituality, but no denomination, the religion. That's what he meant when he said there's no religion. The no countries part, so Yoka would say this, right? Knowing John, that Lennon was a global citizen, right? He was known the world over. And he just couldn't understand, like, why we couldn't all get along, right? Like Rodney King would say, well, why can't we all get along? And so countries didn't make a lot of sense to him, because it just invited more division, right? And people fighting and killing and whatnot. So death. Anyway, after no religion, he says, imagine all the people living life in peace. And he said, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one, right? So one, like, remember Bob Marley, right? One love, right? One people, one love. And then he goes on, imagine no possessions. This is a tough one for people to grasp, right? Imagine no possessions. And this is what I believe John meant, is that what the Hopi Maya would say, right, about the fifth world prophecy, that hyper-materialism, right, this focus on materialism and man-made stuff, it's going to go away, and it's going to be about spiritual currency in the fifth world, right? So imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for, what? Greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. So very, very fifth world, right? Very visionary, right? Because this is what the Hopi Maya prophecy is about. Us all getting together and living in harmony with each other and nature, right? Brotherhood, sisterhood, that's what it's all about. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there with John Lennon, because I have a few more things to talk about. I know I've gone over, but again, two huge icons, a lot to say about these guys, about Sam Cooke and John Lennon, but wanted to start talking about current events. So if you've been reading the newspaper, watching the news, you know a big short squeeze took place this month, right? This month. What is a short squeeze? It's so what happens if you're into shorting stocks, right? You bet on a stock, you bet it's going to go down, and if it goes up, well, you lose, right? You end up having to buy that stock at a higher price, and so and when you buy that stock at a higher price, it makes the price go higher and higher. So there's a big short squeeze took place, right, in the month of January with GameStop, right? A band of individual investors, a lot of them trading on Robinhood, right? The Robinhood app, bound together and started buying GameStop. They felt it was undervalued, and the one behind it all actually lives not far from me in Brockton, Massachusetts. If you know Brockton, that's the birthplace of that's where Rocky Marciano hailed from, right? The heavyweight champion of the world boxer. Also, Marvin Hagler hails from Brockton, right? Middleweight champion of the world. I think he actually lives out in Europe now. But anyhow, this individual investor, said, GameStop is undervalued. I'm going to start buying GameStop, and I believe he has a YouTube channel, and so people got behind it. And so the traditional, short sellers, these hedge funds, ended up losing a lot of money. They actually, in the month of January, lost an approximate $20 billion because of this, what they call a short squeeze, right? And one of the, so anyway, I was reading about this hedge fund billionaire, Leon Copperman, and he appeared on TV on CNBC's Fast Money on Thursday, and he was upset by all this, right? He was upset by, this disruption of Wall Street, right? These individual investors, a lot of them on this app, right? Robinhood, they disrupted Wall Street, right? These hedge funds lost billions of dollars, approximately $20 billion. So he's upset by this, and he's also upset. He took aim at U.S. President Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden's been hinting recently about potentially increasing the tax on capital gains. So he's upset about that, and I could think, it was like, man, why is this guy, upset? Where's the rage coming from, right? And then I remembered my coaching, right, daily divinity coaching. Billionaire, right? Rage. Why? Because they recognize not just Cooperman, but also, the billionaires in Silicon Valley, their rush to try and manifest immortality through technology versus spirituality, right? The fifth world currency is going to be spiritual. We're going to manifest immortality through spirituality, not Silicon Valley technology, right? But Cooperman and Thiel, right, the Silicon Valley billionaires, these guys, they feel the squeeze, right? Short squeeze, but they feel, right, the squeeze, that their time is ending. It's coming to an end, right? Their ability to manipulate the money supply, right? We talked about this last week, right? The manipulation of the money supply by the feds and that cartel of bankers and corporate folk. Their ability to manipulate the stock market, right? Which, the reason that Cooperman and these other guys are billionaires, right? These hedge funds. And their ability to manipulate the tax code, right? And Cooperman's sounding off about the tax code or the possible raise in capital gains tax. It's coming to an end, right? The fifth world is going to be about spiritual currency, right? It's not going to be ruled by the lords of scarcity anymore. It's going to be about abundance, right? It's going to be about spiritual currency. The great teacher said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right? The things of Caesar. A lot of people interpret that as meaning that the great teacher was talking about, well, pay your fair share of taxes. And I'm not going to argue that on an individual basis. What I'm going to talk about is systemically. Somebody gave him this coin. He looks at this coin, right? The great teacher, and he says, Caesar, the emperor, man-made money? Like, dude, get your head in the game. Get your head in the game, guys. We're not talking about man-made stuff here. We're talking about spiritual currency. I'm here to demonstrate your limitlessness, right? Not just I, but you were created in the image of the divine, right? You're limitless like I'm limitless. Get your head in the game, right? I'm here, walking on water, right? Feeding the hungry, healing the sick, right? They're going to try and kill me, and they're going to be successful, but not really, because I'm going to rise up in 3 days, right? I'm going to raise from the dead. I'm going to ascend to heaven and alive, right? I'm going to manifest immortality, right? So get your head in the game, right? This is what it's about. It's about spiritual currency. So I'm going to go ahead and wind down, but before I end, I do want to say a special shout out to my cousin Erica. She's going to be celebrating her first reverse birthday next weekend. So Prima, your first reverse birthday card is in the mail. I hope you have a joyous celebration. So if you want to learn more about first reverse birthdays, please visit my website, dailydivinitycoach.com. You can pull down an order form and request a free e-card. I'll send you out an e-card for your first reverse birthday. Or if you want to contact me directly via instant messenger, if you have my phone number, text me like my Prima did, and let me know you got a first reverse birthday coming up, and I'll go ahead and get you out a card. That would be my pleasure to do that. So again, first reverse birthdays, learn more at dailydivinitycoach.com. I'm going to end now. I thank you so much for joining. I am really grateful and humbled, joyful that you're able to join live, and then those of you watching the recorded video at a later date, I'm also very grateful and thankful for you as well. Very appreciative of this platform, of this portal to be able to share this information, knowledge, and wisdom. May you have a blessed rest of your day or evening, wherever you're at. And yes, blessings to you and yours. Signing off now. Bye-bye now.